Hello and welcome to another episode of In the Back Pocket. The big story from last week as we welcome in our hosts, Zach Toohey, Kate McCarthy, welcome back, and the legend Nathan Bell, the veteran. Thank you for yelling my name directly back at me. Carlton, what happened? Is this what we're going to expect for the rest of the year? Because they're coming up in a big Thursday night footy matchup here, but it was an absolute disaster for them.
That was a shocking start. It couldn't have gotten much worse for them. We were trying to pick the margin, not the result. Now, it may very well turn out that Richmond are a much better side than we expected. But given where we perceive both these clubs to be right now, Carlton couldn't have gotten off to a much sloppier start.
Yeah, I think not only have they lost to a team that is young, I know, yes, they may be a little bit different in the ballpark to what we were expecting, but they were 41 points up. That's the worst part of this, is that they were up by 41 points. They had that many more inside 50s, 62 for the game, and still couldn't beat Richmond, who are very young. They're a very young team, regardless of talent, what we're talking about. It was a capitulation.
Nathan? What was a poorer loss? That or Edward Scissorhands over there?
He's been sitting on that joke that whole time because he's laughing to himself. I was like, what is he laughing at? Did I say something wrong?
This was an attempt from me to look more intimidating to blokes and sexier to women. I failed on both accounts.
Well, I was about to say, you're ticking both boxes over here. You're going well. Usually players, when they retire, it takes, you have a bit of an identity crisis. It usually takes a little bit longer than round one of the next season to pull a full Britney moment and shave the head.
And the identity to
Leave Zach alone.
Okay, let's crack right into it now. Thursday night footy. Carlton get a chance to redeem themselves with one of the toughest in opponents here in the Hawthorn Footy Club, who are absolutely flying, Nathan.
They are flying too. So big question marks. Can they answer? I think Carlton bounce back. I don't think they win the game, but I think this is going to be mighty close. Obviously a fair bit of rain around predicted to come in as well. So 4 to 5 mils between 7 and 9 o'clock. So the total points I was looking at over, I thought it'd be high scoring, but you'd have to be going the unders now.
Are you picking Tom de Koning to have the advantage in the ruck here?
Yes, not in terms of hit-outs, not in terms of influence on the game, but more, I've noticed a trend in the first couple of weeks. There's ruckman been getting a hell of a lot of the ball, so 20 plus for a lot of ruckman, and he grabs the ball out of the ruck a fair bit. So I don't think it affects him having the rain, because I think you get first crack at it, you get first hand on ball, and I like Tom de Koning 20 plus.
Kate, the small forwards, they've been given the name, I'm not sure who actually coined this term, the smalls at Hawthorn first, but the Mosquito Fleet. Are we buying or selling that as a little slogan?
I don't know. I think they're a little bit cooler than that. I think
Mosquito is a terrible
Fleet,
animal.
I don't know, but they're a cool group. But the one I want to talk about, though, is Will Day. Not one of the smalls, but he's gone forward the last couple of weeks. He was the first kick of this passage, and we know they're the Hollywood Hawks for a reason. They get it, they go quickly and catch defence out like that. But this one here, this is from a centre bounce, and the player that's coming out of the square is Will Day. He doesn't take the mark there, but he brings it to ground, and Chol kicks the goal. So I like him for disposals, and I also like him sort of anytime 2+ in their games at the moment with the way that they're structuring up. He's looking a little bit different, not just playing solely in the midfield and not playing as a small when he goes forward. He's playing as the one-out target out of the square, which is what I like about him.
Been resting their midfielders out of the goal square, so him and Newcombe and Connor Nash as well. So it's a good move by Mitchell.
And he can compete really well one-on-one when the ball's on his head, so I like it.
Well, let's jump straight into the best bets for this one as well. You're going to kick us off, Kate. Where are you playing? I think I know with your little discussion there.
No, sideswipe.
Oh.
I'm going Carl Amon 25+. I think purely he's so reliable. I think he's one of the best kicks in the comp, and we're finally starting to see it the way that they're using him in Hawthorn. If they win, he gets more than 25 because he is a very good kick of the footy.
I'm going to pick up what she's putting down on Will Day. His disposal line is 22.5. Rain around, bigger body. It's just built for Will Day in this game tonight. 22.5 overs.
I've got Dylan Moore 2+. You worry about Carlton's ability to defend at the best of times. The Hawks, Smalls and Moore, Watson and Guinea all hit the scoreboard last week, and I expect it to continue this week.
And there was a fight in the WhatsApp group over who was going to get Dylan Moore 2+. And you took the safe option and you said, it was you that said you were just going to give it up. You said new incomer, got a haircut.
That intimidated me.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, let's just jump into the best bets multi as well. We're going to package them all up, and you can find it on the feed under In the Back Pocket. Will Day, Carl Amon, Dylan Moore 2+, who I believe is the golden goose in this one. We had two people going for it.
The 40
and I'm
plus
going 40 plus.
40
The 40
Worries
plus
you?
worries me, yeah.
You think you're more on the Carlton bounce back?
I think they bounce back. Charlie Curnow back in, 40+ in the wet. It's a tough bet. If it gets up, well done. But I think there's three legs that are going to get up, and yours probably won't.
Who are you going to listen to, though? The
Browny.
former AFL legend or the ex-reality TV failed
Legends a bit
reality
far.
TV star. Let's cut to a break and me and Browny will work it out. Plenty more coming up next. Hello and welcome to In the Back Pocket. We're here to preview an entire round of AFL and maybe a bit of throwback as well. Nathan Brown, Kate McCarthy, Zach Toohey, a fantastic trim up top, mate. You were looking like an Irish fighter in every sense of the word.
That is not true. I made a horrible mistake and I just have to live with it.
Fantastic. Well, let's roll in. Last week, made a whole bunch of bets. Now, we're going to keep accountability on this show going forward. That's what people want. They want accountability. So let's go back to the round one winners and see who was on fire. Let's jump over there because there was a bit of drama in the WhatsApp group when you guys were going
There was no
forth.
drama. I got in before him with Cripper 30 plus and then he said, I'll also do Cripper 30 plus. No, you won't.
James Jordan has to go to him for me. So I'm taking the disposal line under.
Yeah, it's Tyson Stengel for me. Have it on good authority. He's flying. He kicks 2 goals almost every game he plays at GMHBA and I expect him to do it again.
So Callum Wilkie, I feel like, is St Kilda's best defender. I can't see him going to Fogarty. So I think Fogarty maybe is the one that gets out of the loop.
Fogarty, he's got 4.
He's going to be playing on Lockie Keefe for the best part of 4 quarters. 21.5 his disposal line is. I'm just keen on Max Gorn to go over
He
that.
kicks towards gone.
You can follow the Same Game Multi. Remember, this is all on the feed, under In the Back Pocket. We also got these fellas working on there as well. It's all happening. Where was mine?
Good start. No winners for your Kate.
Did they clip me out? Did they clip me out of that one? Did I legitimately
I think if
have no
anyone
winners?
was clipped out, it was me.
Fantastic. Well, you had good reason to be as
start for me,
well.
Zach.
But
Yeah,
Kate,
strong.
you were still watching footy while you were away. What were your takeaways from round one? Your biggest takeaway?
I liked what I saw from the Bulldogs. So coming into the season, I was really bullish on them, and then a lot of pre-season injuries, which we said in our preview, which sort of raised a few questions for me. But I really like what the youngsters are being able to do now without Bont, Treloar, Jones. All of those players are coming back in 4 to 5 weeks. So I feel like what they're creating there, they were the number one team for scoring from clearance in round one. I know small sample size playing against North Melbourne, but that really excited me because the 2 players that weren't there were their 2 biggest clearance players last year. So Bont and Treloar won the most clearances for the Bulldogs in 2024. They weren't playing, yet they still scored the most goals from clearance. So if they get through to gather round with 2 to 3 wins, I think they are in a really good spot come the end of the season.
Well, you could have been forgiven for not watching any footy because, of course, you were on your honeymoon, but work did not take a break. As we have a look at this, that you were just relaxing by the pool, but a bit of footy as well. You just can't get away from it.
Yeah, look, I think it was probably a given that I was going to watch a little bit of footy, but the time zone actually worked very kindly. So the Friday night games are at 4:30, so that's just sort of when we're merging from the pool side to get ready, pre-dinner, and then head out for our dinner.
I was very excited by that. It's almost like it's your favourite time of the
I
day.
agree, it was good timing.
Fantastic. Yeah. Pre-dinner. Fantastic. Well, let's Ross Lyon as well. Now, we all know there's some great TV shows out there, but a lot of people were zoned in to Thursday night footy. Ross the Boss, not so much.
Yeah, well, I watched White Lotus last night, so I'm waiting for the next episode. I'm not sure it's good as the early White Lotuses, but I'm still enjoying it, Thailand. But yeah, I didn't hear anything till this morning. Caught a meme, but yeah, so.
It's a tough one. Probably want to get used to those teams that were playing because you might be around them towards the bottom of the ladder from what we saw against St Kilda. Let's have a look at the market movers that we've got in this one. The least wins market, Brownie, not looking good there for the Saints.
Well, the big mover has been the Saints on the back of Ross Lyon's comments there, 12 into 8. Richmond, $2.40 and West Coast Eagles, $2.75. West Coast looked horrible. And I think Port Adelaide beat Richmond this week.
Yeah, my concern's the Saints, and it's a concern. There's a lot of Saints fans coming out saying that we have so many injuries. There's a lot of injuries that we have, and that's true. But their injuries are to their forwards at the moment. They've got their young forwards, Sharman, Owens, obviously Max King out. Yes, that affects how you move the ball, and that's not why I'm concerned about St Kilda. I'm concerned about St Kilda because they are really struggling to defend, and defence for the last 2 seasons has been their one wood under Ross Lyon. In 2024, they were number 5 ranked for defence for points against. They averaged 73 points against. The last 2 weeks, and I'm going back to the pre-season against Port Adelaide, which was really poor defensively, they conceded 14 goals, 9, and then last week against Adelaide, 135 points. And that's against a team that didn't make top 8 last year. That's my concern for the Saints. Their defence has been so good for so long. Yet it's just gone to water in the last sort of 12 months that we've
Alarm
seen.
bells.
For me, it's alarming. They can score when they get these players back, but their mids and their defenders are the ones that aren't performing at the moment, which aren't where their injuries are.
And you just know the organic growth from young teams is going to be there. We don't know how quickly teams like Richmond will progress. Wonderful start for them this season, but you know they are going to progress. That's a given. I'm not sure I see where the organic growth is going to come from with the Saints.
Well, speaking of young players, the Bulldogs fielded 9 players under 50 games experience. They're coming up against Collingwood in this one in a Friday night footy clash. The report card for this one, I'm giving this one a B+ in watchability.
I don't think you can get a better punting game than this week. And maybe the Geelong St Kilda game, but I'm giving it an A for the fact that the Bulldogs get a lot of disposal, so you can confidently go in that. The Magpies allow half forwards to go up to the stoppage, so you can back confident half backs, so Bailey Dale and these sort of guys. And then the Bulldogs have hardly got any defenders with players out, so you look at the Collingwood 3 tall forwards, and I just think the puntability of this game is an A.
Thursday, I'm saying too old, too slow, too good for the Pies. I think we read too much into this ageing list. They've still got a lot of guys through there. Of course, you got your Pendleburys, you got your side bottoms, are certainly up there. There's plenty of good ages on this list right now. But Brownie, we go back to you. Dan Houston, against his old side, they just let him off the leash and he was allowed to run around untouched. Do you expect that to happen again this week?
I do. So the Bulldogs are one of the top clubs to allow disposals to defenders. Now, Dan Houston, 8 of his last 9 games at the MCG, he's had 25 plus, so he loves the MCG. Dan Houston, so I just see him just having the run of the game here. They won't put any time into him. I'm surprised Port Adelaide didn't put any time into him last week. Takes the kick-outs. I think he took 4 last week, played on 4 times. So that only leaves 21 disposals to get within a game. And the price for Dan Houston is still pretty good. At any stage, Collingwood have the football, they're going to give it to him. He's so good by a foot, so they'll give it to him, they'll give it to Josh Dacos. So I'm happy with both of them, but Dan Houston is the best bet.
One of the best picks in the game. No Bont, no Treloar. Who stands up for the Doggies?
Yeah, and we saw it a bit last year, Ed Richards. He's the one that sort of changed his role a little bit towards the back half of last year. He attended 81% of centre bounces on the weekend, the highest for the Bulldogs. So if he's out there, he's going to attend a centre bounce. I like him for 25 plus. He got 30 last week. That's a career high though. I'm not sure he reaches those heights again this week, but I like him for 25 plus. I also like the Bulldogs in this one. It's their 100-year celebration, going back to the Footscray name for the weekend, and I just think Collingwood a really good win. Probably one that you don't analyse as much as what you did the week before. And the Bulldogs, this means a lot to them as a club. I think they're a chance.
Zach, as someone fresh out of the game, how much does this, 100-year celebration, going back to the Footscray jersey, I absolutely love it. How much does that actually play in when you run out there on game day?
Well, it can be orchestrated in-house. So during the week, they will have, amped up what this means for the club. Players are extremely proud. They know when there's something on the line they can produce. And this is still a wonderful team, the Doggies team. A lot of people expect them to drop. I'm not sure it'll be as dramatic as people expect. And looking at Liberatore, captain this week, got a heap of it last week. If he gets his hands on the footy, it is coming out. He is absolutely determined to get the footy out. He was a nightmare to play on for that very reason, and it suits the Doggies' style. So you expect him with a little bit of emotional boost, being captain and playing how he always plays, which is like a shovel. He's just going to dig it out.
Well, if there is a player that 100 years does have an impact on at that club, it's a Liberatore. And he's captain. So
and the name.
Absolutely, 100%.
Imagine if you had those sort of tattoos back 100 years ago as well. The old Uncle Toby straight on, smack bang on the arm. Bailey Dale as well, you're looking towards him?
Love Bailey Dale. He did a great job last week, but I always love backing Bailey Dale at Marvel Stadium. When the roof's on, something happens to Bailey Dale. This is outside at the MCG, so there's a little bit of a variable being outside. There's something happens to Bailey Dale when he plays outside, but Collingwood, top 3 last year at giving up disposals to half-back. So they push their half-forwards up and they want to create numbers around the contest, which leaves me for Bailey Dale. 7 kickouts last week, 7 play-ons, which only leaves a 25 by 7, 18.
I think so.
Yeah,
I think that's around the maths right there.
Back Bailey Dale.
Now let's jump into the best bets right now. Brownie, kick us off. Where are you playing?
Dan Houston, 25 plus.
Ed Richards, 25 plus for me.
And Libba, 25 plus.
There we go, straight to the point. Absolutely fantastic. I'm going the Collingwood line on this one. And a quick one for me. While Bont is out, what's the pass mark for the Bulldogs? They're coming up against the Pies, Blues, Freo, Brisbane and the Saints. While he'll be out, where do you think they'll sit after that?
Well, I think they want to aim for 3 wins from the first 6 games leading into, I think you mentioned, gather round. So if they can get 3 wins, they're in a good shape.
Yeah, if they get to that Saints fixture with 2 wins, I think they're in a good place.
Yeah, it's a tough run, break even through that run of games, and I think they'll be quite happy.
Fantastic. That's Friday Night Footy. You can follow all of those bets on the feed as well. Just look up In the Back Pocket. It's all happening there. The Bulldogs taking on the Pies. Who's going to take it out? Well, you better watch to find out. We'll see you soon. Welcome back to In the Back Pocket. Tui, McCarthy and Brown. Adelaide versus Essendon. You've penciled it in here in the rundown. You've circled it, saying it is the match of the weekend.
I think it's an absolute ripping game and an opportunity for Adelaide to stamp themselves on the season. They had a good win against St Kilda, who were pretty ordinary last week, but Essendon got some injury concerns to very, very good players. And I just don't see a better chance for Adelaide to go 2-0 to start this season. I love their forward mix, and I think they get the Bombers.
Well, this is the year that they need to roll as well. They need to make finals this year. Kate, the total points in this one, Essendon last week, 196 points overall, the total game points. Adelaide, 207. Both these teams, they can give them up and they can score them as well. It seems a recipe for the over.
Yeah, for this one, I do like the overs for those reasons. And I think also Essendon tend to give up a little bit of transition goal. They do struggle to defend the full ground when it goes coast to coast. And Adelaide, we saw last week what they can do to you, getting their smalls out the back and even their talls fired as well. So I think overs for this one, but I'm with Brownie. I think it's going to be a cracking contest.
And Adelaide haven't won at the MCG since 2017. And Jai Caldwell is a guy that absolutely loves playing at the G, Zach.
Yeah, he was incredible last week. He looks like he's there, Mr. Midfield. He was everywhere on the ground. He's coming up against a really good Adelaide side, a really good Adelaide midfield, which includes one of my favourite players in the competition, maybe the best captain currently in the competition, Jordan Dawson.
Good last week.
Yeah, he was outstanding. He is just a freak of a player. But yes, Jai Caldwell, expect him to have a huge season. He looks like he's ready to take that next step.
That was just a nice personal callback because you gave him a big rap last week as well, Jordan Dawson.
Yeah, I get like 3 things correct a year, and that was one of them.
Well, you said Carlton were going to be a big sleeper, and
yeah, still sound asleep like a baby.
Hey, Jai Caldwell loves the MCG too. So the last 5 games he's played there, he's averaged 30.8. Now you don't think of Jai Caldwell big numbers. Yes, he had mid-30s last week, but back end of last year, last 5 games averaged 30.8. So he's a good price for 25 plus. I just think value, the algorithms haven't caught up yet. So if Jai Caldwell continues to get the ball in this fashion, it'll be $1.30 for 25 next week. But he's a big price this week, so it's one to put in your same game multis.
Speaking of big prices, early doors double figure win for you. Darcy Fogarty, you said that he was going to dominate up forward, and he did just that.
Well, it's trying to get the least best forward, if that makes sense. So Callum Wilkie's their best forward, best defender last week. So you want to get the opposition. I understand what you're saying. Real backhander. You want to get the worst defender, and that's what I thought Darcy Fogarty got last week. And I look at the Bombers who have got players out again this week. So Darcy Fogarty building. He had a consistent, probably last 2 seasons where the first part of his career wasn't that consistent. I just feel like he's ready to blossom.
Perfect. What about the rising star market? Because Lawler for Richmond was absolutely unbelievable. Capped it off with the style points with the backflip, which I'll tell you what, is an unbelievable athletic effort, but to also do it after running out almost an entire game is a whole nother one. But you look at that, $18 into 4 for the rising star. Probably the biggest futures market mover we've seen.
Wasn't he didn't do the backflip, he was the other flip, but
wow.
It was a great game from Lawler no matter what. It was regardless.
You know what?
Same.
Someone from the Tigers did a backflip and they played a good game of footy.
Unfortunately, it wasn't Sam.
We'll jump up his highlights here, but Lawler, do we think this is just a round one? You know, they were told they were terrible all pre-season and they've bounced back, a bit of youthful experience, but is this legit? You like what you saw from him?
Oh, it's legit from Lawler, 100%. He has announced himself in a game where, yes, they got the win, but regardless of them getting the win or not, we would have been talking about his performance, in my opinion, because he was fantastic. Some of the things that he did, as a first-year player at times, it's hard to get yourself into the game and it's hard to also have the confidence to do things that he did. He shrugged off players, he took players on and then tipped it off with a beautiful goal out the back. So I just think he's definitely announced himself and he has definitely won. I mean, he's the only nomination so far for Rising Star, so he's got to be the favourite,
Well, he's probably the favourite, you would imagine, with all that sort of calculations right there. How big, Zach, your first game as an AFL player, how big is having a game like that just for your confidence, especially with a young team?
Yeah, it's a dream start, and it takes something deep. Like, he's obviously got a deep self-belief in himself to jump that mark on the wing. Some of his follow-up work, I always think, takes a good set of cojones, because it's very easy to do one thing well and then think, all right, I've gotten away with something, I've had my moment. He was desperate to get his hands on the footy, and he really imposed himself in a game that was tight, a game that wasn't expected to be a blowout, a game they weren't expected to compete. He forced himself on the game.
On the topic of big kahunas, you knew that was coming. You mentioned last week you kicked that goal after the siren and then Brownie just made it all about himself and he said, yeah, that was a fantastic effort, but the call was twice as good at the goal. We've gone back through the archives and we've found that footage. Let's have a look. Let's have a listen to it.
Wow! He's going to go back with a kick to win the game after the siren. Every person in Ireland has just turned their TV on and they're watching this. They're going to do it for us, son. You're 40 metres out to win the game after the siren. Here comes Zach Toohey. Right foot, drop punt. Got it! You superstar, Zach Toohey! The Cats are home in an absolute belter at the Cattery.
Well, one.
Did he request that?
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
request it. I felt like he requested it.
And he was smiling ear to ear when we get the footage there.
I don't like when that comes up. I'm just a regular guy, just like you, all right, except much better.
Put it away.
I do think you sounded like, I've heard blokes at the pub yelling in that exact same tone, going, Zach Toohey, you legend.
You just got to yell.
And you also stole it off BT. Wowee, straight off the bat at the start.
Maybe.
Let's go into our Saturday best bets right now. Brownie, you're going to kick us off.
I think the game Geelong versus St Kilda, you could pick any number of the Geelong forwards, but I've gone Ollie Henry because I think he gets the good matchup.
Zach, where are you playing?
I've got Adelaide winning. Like I said, I expect them to be the big climber for me this year. I thought that last year. I'm happy to go with them again this year, and they didn't do anything in round one to change my mind.
Yeah, I know we've got a Cats forward in Ollie Henry as part of it, but that doesn't put me off. I think Paddy Dangerfield will also, both of them could kick 3+ the way that we saw St Kilda defend on the weekend. I love them using him forward, and I really struggle to find a matchup for him in the forward line, as well as Jeremy Cameron as well. It's going to rain goals, I think.
I went Geelong 1-39 last week. I thought that Freo...
This is an issue.
No. I'm not taking it. I've changed it. I'm not narrowing myself. I'm not putting myself in a betting prison. I am going the line here, and I think they're going to expose that one. I think they're going to go too far. That's absolutely fantastic.
On the sheet here, it said Geelong 1-39. That worried me.
And I made a quick change on that one. But let's go. You can put these all into a Saturday Best Bets multi. Remember, on the feed, in the back pocket is where we're going to be rolling on that one. You can follow it. Let's talk Coleman, though, because this is the one thing across the board in our pre-season sort of selection show that I actually landed on, and that is Nick Larkey for me. Kick 5, he's looking good at the moment. North Melbourne, they put up a decent score, albeit losing, but here's the market moves for the Coleman medal. Anything jump out here to you,
The
Brown?
thing you've got to note is they've got a game in hand on a couple of players. So Jesse Hogan missed the first 2 games for the Giants. Charlie Curnow missed the first game for Carlton. So they've got a game in hand. And Ben King's kicked 6 away. So that is big. So hasn't even played at home yet. So you feel like Ben King, the value.
Yeah, I think the concern for me with Larkey is not Larkey himself, is we didn't see a whole lot of growth out of North Melbourne. I think that game was there to be won on Friday night it was. I was in another country, so we can give me that. Whatever night it was. But I think they didn't show enough improvement for me as a team. I think Nick Larkey, if he gets the opportunity, he wins the Coleman. But I'm not sure that they have what it takes up the field to get the ball to him often enough to kick the goals.
Yeah, and provided King makes most of his opportunities, he's had some issues in that space in the past. I expect Gold Coast to be a much better side than we've seen. It should be the best version of Gold Coast we've ever seen. It's clean up their away form, which he's gotten off to an incredible start. He's going to kick goals at home. So provided he's got his kicking boots on this year, I think he's a really good shot.
What you saw from Carlton, Charlie Curnow, of course, still right up there in the market. Do you think that he's going to be somewhere that's obviously he's going to be around about? But what you saw from Carlton, they didn't look pretty, but they did win the inside 50 count by, I believe it was 25. So they've taken the approach of just bombing it in, which doesn't seem to be a profitable way to play footy in this modern game. Do you think having Curnow in there is going to help them a lot and help him in the?
Well, I think so. Common? When he plays against, he's going to fill his boots against the sides way down the bottom of the ladder. So when he plays the West Coast Eagles, you saw what Ben King did. So when Charlie Curnow, you'd have to lock him in for 4+ straight away, but he's got the ability to kick 9s and 10s, where not a lot of players in the AFL have that ability. They've got okay to kick 4, 5. That's as big as they go. Charlie Curnow, he's massive. He can go 10. He could even kick 12. He's that good when Carlton get on a roll.
Yeah, their ball movement up the field has to be better though. It was poor. It's been poor. It's been long bombs in. Doesn't help a key forward like Curnow. So I think, yeah, he has the ability to get on the scoreboard. But again, back to that sort of same vein, the ball coming in needs to help out your forwards a little bit.
Probably the most exciting thing that happened in the football week for a general fan like myself is I'm going to say generally all sport, is the announcing of a new mascot. Now, Tasmania have announced something, as we see in the back here, a giant rat beast that appears to have taken over the screen. Now, it looks weird, it moves weird, and I believe that it is weird. What are your initial thoughts on this thing?
It looks a bit paper mache to me.
That's what I thought, yeah.
I thought it was paper mache. I actually kind of like that it's different. That's what I like. I think things that are different, we sort of discredit to start with, and then when a few people jump on board, we're all very quick to like it. But I don't mind it. I think it's intimidating, it's bold, it's brave, it's Tasmanian, so it should be a little bit weird.
The worrying thing is I quite distinctly remember speaking to that thing in the smokers at Reps. So I have met it before. So it's good to see it's made a bit of a career turnaround. What are your thoughts, Zach?
It's horrifying, yes. Yeah. I'm sure I will warm to it like I do with most of these things, but that is categorically the most terrifying thing I've seen in quite some time.
Would you ever, what about you, Brownie? You're always, you got a big family. Is that something that would entice you to the footy?
No. I thought they could have done better. But who knows?
Would you ever make the move to Tassie, Zach? There's all this sort of talk about now. I'm assuming that thing's not going to bring, and we say thing because it's called Room On, I believe, and We Are the Team, also an amazing slogan that really gets you fired up for Tassie football. There's all the talk about players not wanting to go to Tasmania potentially, and maybe it's because of that thing. But are you someone who would have made the move during your playing career?
I personally would have loved to have gone to Tassie. I don't understand the conjecture around. It's stunning down there now. The rat monster changes things. But I personally would have loved to have gone, and if I could have extended my career a few more years, I can't think of anything better than finishing down there.
Did they explain where the name came from?
No. There was. If you look on its Instagram page, though, it appears to speak in how an animal would speak, which is another thing we could unravel at another time. It's real unbelievable work.
I tell you what, it's got a fair bit of marketing volume out of it. So we've played it. Everybody's played it all week. So it's a big tick for Tassie. They've done the thing that they needed to. Let's get eyeballs on it.
They made fun of it when they called the basketball team the Jack Jumpers. They went and won a championship, and everybody loves the name the Jack Jumpers there.
When everything's sort of a bit 50-50, we all edge on the side of caution and say no. But then when a lot of the people start to jump on, we're all quick to say that we loved it. So I'm getting out there first. I'm saying I think it's a good thing. I like it. It's done exactly what it needed to do. We're talking about the Tassie team.
Fantastic. I just don't want to see it any time after 10 p.m. or when the lights are out. So we leave it there. But let's go to burning questions right here. How do you come back from a round one embarrassment? We'll throw Freo and the Saints probably in that major category.
The only possible silver lining you could find is that it is round one. So you kind of take it with a small pinch of salt now. The scope of those losses were damaging, but you would hope your list is strong enough mentally to not give up on the plan and all the stuff you've worked on immediately. Now, if you follow it up with a couple of bad losses again, then it is panic stations because the nature of those losses was so bad. It's not like Sydney, who've dropped a couple of games and actually played quite well. That was a capitulation from a couple of teams in round one.
What would the mood be like in the locker room at Carlton afterwards? We saw the fans, which we absolutely hate to see, yelling over the fence. But how do you approach that as a team? What would be, of course, you played for the Blues and we're in some situations where there were some tough losses. What's it like the week leading up to this next game?
You just got to make sure it doesn't turn into a name game. There can't be any fingers getting pointed. Like I said, this is the nature of the sport. This happens. This is not rare. Now, Carlton will argue it's happened to them more often than a lot of clubs, but they do have great leaders and great players, and I expect a huge bounce back. I think Hawthorn will still win, but I would be stunned if Carlton don't play a really good game.
And I think a loss like that actually holds you probably in better stead come sort of future rounds for the fine-tooth comb that you take to it to look at, okay, how did this happen? How did we get done by Richmond when we were 41 points up? Where did it fall down? Whereas when you suffer a close loss, or have a close win, you don't really look over the games as much as you probably should. So I think the earlier in the season that you can learn those lessons, the better off you are.
Jackson Archer, 3-game suspension. Brownie, you're across every network and every radio station. I'm sure you've talked about it a lot. Your thoughts on the incident itself? It looked innocuous, but we protect the head to an extreme extent.
We do, but I just don't know what Jackson Archer was supposed to do when you're going that fast. I mean, split seconds decisions. You can see he actually tries to get out of the way at the end. I feel for the young man who got concussed, but I also feel for Jackson Archer. I think a split second decision, you can't expect somebody to make the right decision in that moment.
Yeah, watching it live, I thought it was going to be Jackson Archer's free kick for contact below the knees because he elects to go to ground Luke Cleary, and that was my stance initially. I know, protect the head, we have to look at that. As many commentators have said this week, I don't know what else Jackson Archer was supposed to do to not collect Luke Cleary in that situation. A pure accident. These things happen. Yes, sometimes players genuinely get concussed from accidents. I think we need to be better at accepting that and knowing that that's the bottom line is that.
Yeah, to me it looked like a free kick to Archer. If both players had stood up off the ground, I would expect the footy to have been handed to Archer. And look, it raises questions because you can imagine a situation where Archer gets, in that exact same instance, his leg broken. Do both players get suspended? One's lying concussed on the ground and one's being stretchered off. Sometimes these things, unfortunately, just happen.
It's hard because it's always tough to put grey area when it comes to the appeals process and stuff because a good lawyer can pick their way through anything that's grey, but there needs to be something where intent is taken into the account. More sort of a criminal sort of nature thing, but there needs to be something where it's intent, not accidental like that. Now, I think you've written this one in. How good would an international rules return be?
Unbelievable. As the number one scorer for Australia all time, I want to back. Now, we spoke about the mascot for Tassie. We had Dipper as our mascot. So any time we went over to Ireland, and I went over 3 times, Dipper was on the sideline as the club mascot. He'd start the songs, he'd do all the singing, he'd buy the first round of beers. So I'm happy for that to come back, as are you, because I think you'd be a great coach.
Yeah, I would love to be part of it in any capacity again. Any player who's done it loves it. Now, it might not be the best spectacle of all time, but I think...
Who are you coaching for, Australia or Ireland?
Ireland.
Yeah.
Well, I'm on
to get aggressive about it.
I'm saying we need a men's and a women's international
do it in
rules.
tandem.
Take the AFLW girls, take the boys, let's go.
I'm not even sure why they got rid of it in the first place. You'd have your name up in lights over there in Little Dublin if you did. We'll be back right after the break. Sunday footy. Welcome everybody back to In the Back Pocket. It's Sunday footy. Let's crack into the report card here, Nate. The watchability, the puntability. I'm giving this one a C, which is average, and I just think it's going to be over at half-time.
Yeah, B for puntability. So anytime you've got a really good side against a poor side, there's opportunities for disposals, opportunities for goals. You're probably not going to be betting into West Coast, but certainly Brisbane, Lockie, Neil, they're goal scorers.
Now, Felix, take us to 14-15.
Oh, I certainly will. Well, let's just go back in the time machine. The Battle of Agincourt. Now, what happened here? A very undermanned English army took on the overmanned French army and defeated them. Why? Tactics, equipment, and that's exactly what Brisbane have. They got better personnel, and they're going to make this one very, very similar, Nathan, to the Battle of Agincourt.
Okay, so who was favoured in the battle in 14-15? Was it the English or the French?
Well, you look at numbers and sheer size, you would say the French.
Right.
So wouldn't that mean that
West Coast?
West Coast are the French, and they're about to be dismantled and destroyed by the English.
Okay.
I have not butchered that.
It absolutely clear as mud.
Let's jump into that.
I think we should stick to footy.
Who's playing? Brisbane Eagles. Let's go with this one. Where are you playing?
Okay, so it's a big win here for the Brisbane Lions. It's tough to play at the Gabba any time. The line, but also I like the total goals. So it's 17.5 is the total goals market. It might seem big to be kicking 18 goals, but I watched West Coast last week. They are down defenders, and I just feel like Brisbane kick a lot of goals.
Yeah, and I love Lockie Neal in this one for disposals. I know he was held to his 8-year low last week by a beautiful tag from James Jordan, but I think he bounces back and he loves playing against the Eagles. 3 of his last 5 have been over 30, and the 2 that weren't over 30, 29.
Oh, fantastic. Zach, where are you sitting on this one?
Comfortable win. Clearly, it's a question of how much and not whether or not they win. That is exactly what I said for Carlton Richmond. And I certainly don't think the Eagles have anybody who can touch up Lockie Neal the way James Jordan did last week. So Neal to get a stack of footy.
What were your thoughts on the Battle of Agincourt back in 14-15?
Well, I just thought they had no full forwards. They just couldn't kick a score.
I'll tell you what, if you think the Gabba's tough to play out, imagine France in 14-15. It was a little muddier, it was a little bloodier, and it was certainly dirtier in this one. Just a quick one on the Eagles. They've got a couple of big guns, Oscar Allen, Harley Reid, that other teams are looking at. If they continue this season the way they have in the past, are they in a little bit of trouble keeping these guys? Because you do not want to be spending your prime in a team down that end of the ladder that's showing not too many signs of moving upwards.
Yeah, this is danger zones for West Coast for me. They do have a lot of really good players, but if they don't start to see everybody rise, it's not going to end well.
Yeah, it's sort of casting my mind back to a Horn Francis scenario at North Melbourne, the way that sort of played out.
Did you just give that a bit of horn, Francis?
Horn Francis?
There's a bit of posh to that.
I was just going back to Agincourt. Yeah. Lots of horns around there, I reckon. But it does sort of give a little bit of that feel with how unsuccessful they were at North, with Harley at West Coast, and a few signs he's been sort of taken to town this week around his attitude and some of the things that he did on field in such a heavy loss. So I'm sure he'll reflect on that. He's a young kid. He's learning about football. He's come into this game as someone that's been so highly touted, and even last year sort of got more and more praise. But there's times in your career where you realise that you probably did the wrong thing. I think he'd probably reflect on that and think he did the wrong thing, have a chat to senior players, have a chat to coaching staff, and sort of, for lack of better terms, pull his head in this week and put on a better performance.
So much easier if you're playing a really good team when you're young. So Nick Dacos comes into a Collingwood side that's flying, and he's a great player like Harley Reid, but you come into a side that he's getting belted week in, week out, and you're the focus of that. You know, he carried on a bit, but I do feel for Harley Reid at the moment. He'll look at that and go, you know what, I need to pull my head in. There's probably some senior players around the club who say you probably need to pull your head in, but let's be honest, he's a young kid, and you take yourself back when you're that young, you made mistakes, and you made mistakes over and over again until one day it clicked.
Yeah, you got to look after these guys. He is going to be a superstar in the future, and if you're West Coast, you're doing everything to make sure he's happy and supported. And you're right, coming into a good side plays a huge part. I always reflect back on Joel Selwood entering the game and how lucky he was. He talks about it a lot. He used to talk to the younger guys at the Cats when I was there. So timing's important. He just needs to get through this period.
Well, North and West Coast in very, very similar circumstances at the moment. North probably with a few more ups on them this year. They take on the D's in this one. Now, for me, I'm giving this one a C again. I think it's just going to be a bit of a meh game for the most part.
Yeah, and I'm giving this a D. This is the worst punting game of the weekend, just about. I look at it and I go, who am I backing with any confidence? Oliver didn't quite hit the straps last week. Petrarca, probably the only one. Then you look at the forward half of Melbourne. Who are you going to kick back to kick goals? So Bailey Fritsch has been down. Van Rooyen didn't do anything last week. But then you look at North Melbourne. Do we go Nick Larkey? But Melbourne was so good defending tall forwards last week. So D game for puntability.
Note Stephen May in this one. Larkey, he's on Coleman watch for me this year. Are you expecting him to have a breakout? Not a breakout, but a big game.
For Nick Larkey? Well, I think so, but he's going to get so many players in front of him. So many players at Melbourne get back and they defend the tall players well. It is the small forwards that are probably the only danger against Melbourne here. And I don't mind Paul Curtis as well this weekend. I think there was some goals kicked last week against Melbourne, 6. I think Canelio kicked 3, Toby Green kicked 3. So if you're going to look at a small forward, a smart small forward, it's probably Paul Curtis.
Yeah, and to sort of support the unknown element of this game from a punting perspective, two teams that we're not quite sure how they're going to come on this year. Good signs from Melbourne, not such good signs from North last week, but we've only had one sample size as well to look at. So I think that makes it even harder. I think the smalls at either end are the best chance for goals in this game as opposed to the talls, but like we said, it's going to be a hard one to call.
Yeah, and just on Larkey, I still look at Melbourne's midfield as one of the premium midfields in the competition. Hasn't been firing on all cylinders like we've seen it in the past. There's no secret about where North Melbourne's goals are coming from. They're coming from Nick Larkey primarily. That's who they're going to look for. And I just don't know if North's midfield can get enough ball to Larkey to put a big number on the board.
And Jake Lever will just stand in his way. Whether he plays on him, I don't think he'll play directly on him, but he'll stand in his way all day.
Are you going the ladder method on Paul Curtis, similar to Fogarty?
Paul Curtis.
$16 for 4.
He's good value at $2.65. So I'll start with a 2 in front of it, but wouldn't be surprised if he gets the 3. Canelio, very smart forward last week, and I think Paul Curtis is in the same vein.
All right, well, let's jump into Fremantle and the Swans in this one. Both a little bit underwhelming, and that's where we go for our 3 words or less here. The Underwhelmers Cup, but the watchability a B+, because both of these teams, they will be under the spotlight if they go down.
They will be. 0-2 Sydney, but in their defence, they've played their 2 best sides in the competition in Brisbane and Hawthorn. But winning form is good form, and they don't want to go 0-3. It's a long way back from 0-3, even though they have played the 2 best sides and Fremantle, which is probably the hardest road trip.
Yeah, I challenge the watchability. I think this one's an A+ for watchability. I think you've got a team last week that was so poor in Fremantle, really a team that we've looked forward to watching, and then they sort of served that up at Geelong. Yes, a road trip. Yes, down at GMHBA, but there were things in that game that they would be very disappointed with. The Swans, as you said, Brownie, 2 of the hardest teams in the comp they've come up against. They're 0-2. You don't want to be 0-3 either and add the travel element to it. So I think these teams are both going to prepare very well for this game, and there's a lot on the line for a game that we're talking about in round 2.
James Jordan's looking to become one of the premier taggers in the competition. He's done a number on a couple of guys right now. Coming up against Lachie Neale here, how do we think that's going to roll?
Lachie Neale last week, he did a fantastic job on him, kept him remarkably quiet. I haven't seen Lachie Neale put to sleep like that in a very, very long time, and I expect him to have a look at Sarong. It's certainly going to be Brayshaw or Sarong, but for me, Caleb Sarong is he's prime time. He is their guy in the middle. Even in a really poor performance last week, I thought he fought back and was the player who got them back in the game in the third quarter. So I expect James Jordan to go straight to Sarong and quell his influence.
He's more dynamic. So you want to take the dynamic one out. Yeah, he's like a bulldozer, Brayshaw. So he's going to plough away and get the job done week after week. So I think he gets disposal line over. So the multi is disposal line over for Brayshaw and under for Sarong. If you get it around the wrong way, that's punting.
Well, let's jump into the Sunday best bets in this one. Brownie, you're going to lead us off.
Certainly am, Felix, as I turn my page. And my best bet is Lockie Neal 30 plus. Zach just spoke about it. I thought he looked flat last week. First time I've ever seen him no zip. You can have those games. You can start the game heavy. He looked like that, had the tag. So Lockie Neal 30 plus to bounce back.
Yeah, I like Calamarchi in this one for 3 plus. I think there's going to be a lot of goals scored. He was the equal most targeted player inside forward 50 last week for the Lions with Hipwood and Morris. And we've seen what he can do. I think if he gets the opportunities like that, he'll kick at least 3.
And just touched on Caleb Sarong and James Jordan going to Sarong. He is the best tagger in the game now. He has no interest in getting the footy himself. He's extremely diligent. If you watch him behind the goals, he's extremely diligent. And I expect him to keep Sarong under the 26.
You know how you hear of Air Jordan? Well, when he tags somebody, it's Bear Jordan. He just jumps on their back and mows them down.
He's tried to make that joke work for the last 4 seasons.
Did that fly on Triple M?
Oh, it's a good joke.
Oh, they would have kicked you right off.
Let's go back to the Battle of 14-15.
Make sure, the battle. You do not want to be in France, 14-15, telling that joke. You can look at the Best Bets multi right here. It's all on the feed as well. Have a look at In the Back Pocket. Thank you for tuning in, and I'm sure we'll see you very, very soon. Enjoy this weekend's footy.
What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.